Good evening. I'm Kelda Yoon. A Toronto woman is facing charges tonight for 3 separate murders over the span of 3 days in 3 different cities. The first happened in Toronto on Tuesday, the second a day later in Niagara Falls, and the third happening yesterday in Hamilton. The 30-year-old woman now facing 1 charge of first-degree murder and 2 counts of second-degree murder. Jamie Strachan has the latest.
I think by definition, she is a serial killer.
3 murders in 3 days this week that police have linked to one woman, 30-year-old Sabrina Calder of Toronto. Victims in 3 different cities, Toronto, Niagara Falls, and Hamilton.
It's always difficult to speculate on what somebody would do.
On Tuesday, a woman in her 60s was found dead inside her Toronto home. Police have not been able to identify her, but according to neighbors, the accused also lived in the area.
I did recognize the woman kind of instantly. She used to walk her cats on a leash in the alley behind these houses.
The next day in Niagara Falls, 47-year-old Lance Cunningham was attacked in the middle of the day while walking his dog near this park. Then, Thursday in Hamilton, a third victim. Police say 77-year-old Mario Bilic died in hospital after an apparent stabbing.
We have her present there, following him then to the area of his vehicle, and then leaving the area shortly after the offense is committed.
Bilic was a well-known and liked retired teacher.
He was a wonderful man. He won't hurt a fly, nobody. That's why it's painful to know his news.
Police arrested Calder later that day at a hotel in nearby Burlington. Bilic and Cunningham were randomly targeted, they say, while Calder was known to the Toronto victim.
When we have someone who's committed 3 offenses in a real tight time frame like that, there is a risk of them obviously committing further offenses.
But in this case, the suspect is unusual.
It would make me wonder what's in this woman's background to have made her engage in homicide, like once, let alone 3 times.
This case is full of unknowns. Police are also looking for this woman. On the day of the first alleged murder, she bought clothes Calder had with her when she was arrested 2 days later. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Toronto.
After less than a day of deliberations, a jury has found musician Jacob Hogard not guilty of sexually assaulting a young woman in northeastern Ontario 8 years ago. It's the culmination of a roughly 2-week trial that saw both the singer and his accuser paint starkly different pictures of what happened. Our Thomas Dagla has more.
It took just 5 hours for 12 jurors to agree Jacob Hogard is not guilty of sexual assault. The now 40-year-old broke down in tears, slowly collapsing in his chair after the verdict was read out. Earlier shielded from the cameras outside that northeastern Ontario courthouse, it was the second time Hogard was on trial on charges of sexual assault. The outcome Friday night, a disappointment for the Crown.
We want to thank the jury, the judge, for their time in this case and for the energy they put into making the decision. Okay? Thanks very much, folks.
At trial, a woman tearfully testified that she had been traumatized ever since the encounter when she was 19. That night in June 2016 began with this Headley concert. Later, the singer posed for a selfie with the complainant at an outdoor after-party. Then it was inside Hogard's motel room that she said he became violent, alleging he pinned her to the bed, then choked and slapped her. But Hogard testified this week in his own defense, insisting what happened was a consensual one-night stand. "Did you rape this woman?" Hogard's defense lawyer asked him before the jury. "No," he replied. "Did you touch her sexually in any way without her consent?" the lawyer asked. "No," he repeated, later saying she was as into it as I was.
And they took a grand total of no time to believe him.
The jury wasn't told that 2.5 years ago in Toronto, Hogard stood trial on similar allegations. He was acquitted on 2 charges, but convicted of sexual assault causing bodily harm against another woman. In 2018, Hogard wrote, "I have never engaged in non-consensual sexual behavior in my life." He'll keep serving his 5-year sentence for that prior conviction, with another trial now behind him. Thomas Dagg, CBC News, Toronto.
A Toronto police officer who was shot this week while investigating an alleged robbery is now out of hospital. The 29-year-old officer is now recovering at home. He also made a brief visit to see colleagues at the division where he works. The officer was shot in the abdomen on Wednesday near Yonge and Eglinton. Police have charged 21-year-old Tibor Organa with attempted murder in connection with the shooting. As we approach the somber anniversary of the Hamas attack in Israel, police in the GTA are increasing their presence in Jewish communities. As Ali Chiasson reports, while they say there is no immediate threat ahead of October 7th, increasing reports of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia throughout the year have many concerned.
And we're very committed to ensuring that everyone is safe and that all members of our community are being looked after.
The police's way of doing that is setting up command posts, 2 in York Region and 3 in Toronto. They will rotate throughout Jewish neighborhoods and places of worship, including synagogues and mosques.
From today's date until October the 8th, we're going to be having these command posts that are going to be out.
Police will be on patrol in cars and on foot as we approach the 1-year anniversary of October 7th. Today, they made clear that the increased police presence is to act as a deterrent, and
we want to ensure the public that right now there is no immediate and no credible threat made against any members of our community.
I feel very, very confident that York Regional Police has the situation well in hand.
While no credible threats have been made, the last 12 months have seen Jewish schools targeted and a business set on fire, incidents of Islamophobia frequent enough that police have been doing outreach at Islamic centers throughout the year as well. While the unrest surges in the Middle East, the unease here at home persists, to which police and elected officials reiterate.
We will tolerate absolutely no hate crime or any hate bias incident. We want these reported to us and they will be investigated fully.
We're aware of the challenge, we're aware of the concern, that we are standing with them, all of them, and that we have their back.
Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
We've now learned details about the lease between Therma Canada and the province to build a water park and wellness spa at Ontario Place. But it's left some questioning if the number of visitors the province says it anticipates, 6 million a year, is too good to be true. Clara Pasica reports.
2.5 million people visited Ontario Place when it opened in 1971. Now most of the visitors arrive with construction equipment, working on a revitalization that, when complete, will welcome 6 million visitors a year, according to Infrastructure Ontario estimates. The agency says its tenant, Therma Canada, who will be building a water park and wellness spa here, will pay the province nearly $2 billion over a 95-year lease, doing so through base rent, operation and maintenance costs, but also performance rent, meaning if the company does well, the province gets more money. They say Therma's wellness facility and water park will contribute an estimated $128 million to GDP every year. NDP leader Marit Stiles didn't hold back what she thinks of the numbers.
It relies entirely on Therma being one of the most successful businesses ever, which really, I mean, who is asking for another luxury spa in downtown Toronto? I think this isn't real math. I think this is government spin.
Major tourist attractions around the world get fewer than Therma's projected 6 million visitors a year. The Statue of Liberty gets around 4 million visitors, the London Eye 3.5 million. Here at home, the CN Tower around 2 million. This marketing professor says looking at data from successful similar attractions, the numbers don't add up.
6 million people is about 16,000 people a day. That seems quite high to me. The largest water park in the world, which is in Guangzhou in China, has the ability to attract about 3 million people a year.
It left this tourism manager professor shaking his head.
When you think about Toronto, you're talking about we're about 9 million person overnight person destination. So you would be then talking about 66% of all visitors who came to Toronto went to that spa. So I'm not sure that is the maths there, so to speak.
Infrastructure Ontario was challenged by media about their visitor estimates. A spokesperson says it includes the whole site, which also includes the Parkland Future Science Centre and a music venue, saying whatever the number is in the end, it will certainly be in excess of the greatly reduced traffic to Ontario Place that we've seen for the last 12 years. Clara Pasica, CBC News, Toronto.
Another Cafe TO season has come to an end. The city says this was a great year for Toronto's curbside patio program, but some are wondering if using city streets to accommodate Cafe TO is only contributing to a growing congestion problem. Greg Ross explains.
Mayor Olivia Chow was in Greektown this morning to officially close out the curbside patio season. She says Cafe TO was a big success in 2024.
It's good for the neighborhood. It's great for the restaurants.
The 304 restaurants that took part in the program this year now have a little over a week to tear down their curbside patios. Most of them have been in place since May.
By Victoria Day, even before Victoria Day, we have 95% of the patio installed.
The mayor says that was a big improvement over last year when the city introduced a new registration system for Cafe TO. It created confusion and bogged down the approval process.
Sometimes the approval was so late that most of the season is gone.
Restaurant owners say it was a big hit to their bottom line. Getting patios opened earlier this year made a difference.
6 weeks earlier this year, we got ours again before the May long weekend, which allowed us the opportunity. That extra revenue stream is huge.
Another issue the city may need to address is congestion on the roadways. In some areas, entire lanes of traffic are forced to be closed down to accommodate these patios.
Yeah, it caused a good bit of traffic, I would say.
This man says traffic is bad in the city and seems to be getting worse. He says the curbside patios may not be worth the hassle.
I'd rather see them go, to be honest, if I had to say it. That'd be me.
But city staff say they don't believe that Cafe TO is a big contributor to the congestion.
A lot of our Cafe TO curbside patios actually are placed within lanes that are typically used for parking. So in the majority of locations, I think there's only maybe a couple that are closing a lane.
This man says the good outweighs the bad with Cafe TO.
As a car owner, yes, it can be inconvenient, but what it does for the city and just the overall energy, I think, is worth the trade-off.
The city is still waiting for data analysis to get a better idea of the economic impact Cafe TO had on the city this year. In 2022, it injected $203 million into the city's economy. They expect this year's numbers to be as good or better. Greg Ross, CBC News.
Welcome back. The Toronto Waterfront Marathon is coming up in just a couple of weeks. And as the event increases in popularity, so do the number of scammers trying to make money from those looking to participate in the sold-out race. Talia Ricci takes a look.
So I try to run a half marathon every year. It's a big, enormous goal of mine. And I was completely devastated when it sold out before I could register.
The Toronto Waterfront Marathon Facebook group is full of comments from hopeful participants looking for bibs. That's the name for the official number that identifies each racer. There's also a lot of talk of people getting scammed or nearly getting scammed.
So I was on the hunt for a bib somewhere, and I was shocked and surprised that there were people trying to scam me.
It's happening to people who are inexperienced with the system to transfer bibs. Victims of the scam say they're asked to send an e-transfer rather than go through Race Roster, the official channel.
People saying, do you have PayPal? And I had seen other posts on the Facebook group for runners, because I've been running for a while, and just be careful of scammers.
And then this year, we had record numbers, even higher than last year. So we sold out back in August. So again, I think there's just more demand.
Canada Running Series, which puts on the Toronto Waterfront Marathon, says it's been working to get the messaging out on its website and social media to make sure people know the process of how to properly transfer a bib.
We just keep emphasizing that the only way to do it is through Race Roster. So if you have a bib and you no longer can participate, you can choose to transfer to another person all through the Race Roster system. Then they are emailed, the new person is emailed a link to claim that registration. They pay Race Roster the money and they register through Race Roster, and the original bib holder then gets refunded.
Toronto police recommend that people exercise caution when making online transactions and say if you've been a victim of fraud, you can submit a report online through its website.
Scammers are people who will abuse trust to make money and to exploit you. So if someone is making you an offer that sounds great, take a minute, take 2 minutes, think about it, talk to someone, and just do a little background research to see if this is real or not. Or don't do it if there's an alternative and more legitimate way of doing it. The Toronto Waterfront Marathon has a vested interest in making sure that people are able to transfer those bibs legitimately. So if someone's not using that system, you have to ask yourself, why not? Even if it's going to cost you perhaps a little bit more, it's worth it in the long run to not lose everything.
A sentiment shared by Susan.
When it finally went through, thank you, thank you, thank you. I get to run with my charity of choice, the 519. It takes a lot of training and a lot of work to build up.
The Toronto Waterfront Marathon runs October 19th and 20th. Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
Residents in Orangeville are coming together to launch a competitive food drive this weekend to support the town's local food bank. The Orangeville Food Bank has seen a dramatic increase in demand over the years, and as Tyreek Reed tells us, it is struggling to keep up.
Staff at the Orangeville Food Bank says this may look like a lot of food, but it's not.
We always want to make sure that our shelves are stocked, and we can't do that right now. And when you go around, you'll notice all the gaps that are in the shelves, and it adds a weight to people.
The food bank says it's struggling to meet demand, a problem that's been growing yearly. It's seen a 143% increase in visitors since 2021, and although donations are coming in, it still receives far less food than it gives out.
It's just not there to give. You know, formula, very little of it, of what I have, might work for your family. We don't have it to share enough to get you through a month.
To help keep up with the growing needs, the town's mayor is launching the Rooted in Community food drive on Saturday.
The reason for Rooted in Community, it's something that I really stand behind as the mayor. It's something I used as part of my campaign slogans. I talk about it all the time. Everything that I try and do in my role as mayor needs to be rooted in community.
The drive mixes in friendly competition by splitting the town into 17 zones. The zone that collects the most pounds of food will win bragging rights.
Within minutes, I had people saying, I'll take zone 4, I'll take zone 6, let's combine zone 6 and 8 and do a similar drop-off point. I knew that if I challenged the community and came up with a fun, creative idea, I knew that they would rally together, because that's just what our community does. We support one another.
Community members like Mark Parrish plan on using their own vehicle to collect and drop off the food.
I'm privileged I can put food on my table and plate, but there's others in this town that can't, so let's see what we can do to help them out as much as we can.
Although the food drive is expected to relieve some of the burden, the food bank says more needs to be done to solve the root cause of the issue.
We need jobs that offer a living wage so people can afford rent, mortgages, food, utilities. We need increases to social assistance. And there's no problem so great that we cannot solve it. We just have to start with the policy first.
The town hopes to host the event again next year. Until then, the food bank is reminding everyone that donations are welcomed at any time. Tyreek Reed, CBC News, Orangeville.
All right, Colette, I do have some outdoor activities planned for tomorrow, so I'm glad to hear that tomorrow will be looking pretty nice.
Yeah, it really is looking good, Kelda, and I'm glad to hear that that's the day you plan some of your outdoor activities. Sunday may be a little bit dicey, and I'm going to get into all of that here with the forecast. I'm starting off with a look at the upper level winds, or what we refer to as the jet stream, because I stood here at this time yesterday, and it was a very strong kind of zonal flow, just starting to get what we call a trough. So when you see one of these or one of these beginning to develop, and now we've got a whole different ball game, as was expected. So this trough kind of passing through with the cold front that we've been seeing moving through. Then we've got a ridge here, moves in, some nice weather for Saturday. It'll be the next trough that comes in as we get to the beginning of next week. That's going to really allow some cooler temperatures to come in. What does that mean? It means we get a little bit closer to seeing these kinds of numbers, a normal high of 16 for Toronto and a low of 7, as opposed to these kinds of numbers like today, 5 degrees warmer and the low almost 4 degrees warmer in there. So we just kind of get knocked back to more seasonal readings and a feel to things. A good feel to Saturday because of all the sunshine that we'll be seeing. So some nice clearing overnight tonight. There is that frost advisory northwest of the city, kind of between Goderich and Owen Sound and Kitchener. In that region, we have the frost advisory. Now Sunday, we get some clouds clouds. We'll call it kind of a mix of sun and cloud for the early morning. I don't know if you're planning on maybe sleeping in on Sunday, because if you get up a little bit later, we get into overcast conditions. And then by the time we get after lunch into those afternoon hours through midday, we do have some rain showers, even a few thunderstorms possible, as this is going to be a stronger front that will be going through. Once it passes, there'll be some brief clearing, but I looked into the beginning of next week, and we may kind of have a trough sitting over us that could bring some extra cloud cover and even a slight chance of showers as we get into the beginning of next week. Not quite as aligned, though, as that front going through Sunday. Along with it, keeping in mind I'm jumping here to Sunday's winds, we will get some gusty winds, at times gusting perhaps over 50 kilometers an hour. In terms of the rainfall amounts, it could be quite the range, less than 5 millimeters to closer to 15 millimeters, where you locally will have some heavier amounts with some thunderstorm activity in there. Overnight tonight, we are looking at that low of 8 degrees, and as we go into tomorrow, 19 the high for Toronto, 18 on Sunday, and there it is, back to seasonal next week, or close to.
All right, I'm going to need my jacket. Thanks so much, Colette.
You're welcome.
Finally tonight, fans of the Tragically Hip will soon have a new way to honor the band. A sign spelling The Hip in bright letters will be officially unveiled in Kingston this weekend. Standing almost 2 meters tall, it has a space where the eye should be. Now, this will allow visitors to step in and complete the band's name as they pose for a photo. The sign will officially be unveiled during a ribbon-cutting ceremony on Sunday afternoon. It can be found outside the city's downtown arena along a road with a fitting name, the Tragically Hip Way.
Come together amazingly. And it's one thing to see it in like on paper, but then to see it like standing there. Yeah. You know, we wanted to make sure that it would last and stand the test of time, so we just made it all in aluminum. But again, for structure, because we know, we're going to get hip fans over here that are going to get pictures and climbing all over it potentially, so we wanted to make sure that that could be possible and no worry of anybody getting injured. It's, we're honored, like, to be able to build something like this for an amazing band like the Tragically Hip is really, it's an absolute honor.
That is our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching.